Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Beehive State, which is also known as Utah. And today's date, Friday, September 11th, 2015. Yes, my friends, this is the 14th anniversary of the horrific event that happened within the United States, which also affected the entire world. Regardless what you believe on how it happened, if you still accept the main story, you have to look a lot further. I stuck to my guns on what I see or observe on that horrific day. I slept through that event, and I had a phone call from my mom, left a message and told me what was happening. Then watching on the news, every single channel within the cable networks had it on, just full force, on what occurred. And some of the rhetoric I see later on from other networks talk about is what happens. We live in a free society. They start throwing these fear rhetoric to get us primitive. Don't get me wrong, I was very infuriated myself. A lot of beautiful people have passed. However, I have taken the initiative on grabbing some of the books I got in my little library at the time, because something just didn't add up. Went through a couple books by David Icke, Biggest Secret, and William Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse. Just a couple. Did a little social research, and had a question immediately. And later on, a few days later, I declared it based on all the tyrannical concepts from the idiot box. Convinced me it was a New World Order agenda. Many people thought I was crazy, didn't know what I was talking about. Others that knew me really well never said I was nuts. They had thought about it too when I started giving them some enlightening information. Sometimes a couple of my siblings, I was like the middle of the three, thought I was crazy, nuts, and so forth. They've learned a period of time that they say, yeah, you're spot on, which is okay. Because something you have to really just look at everything, the broader picture. That's why if you see my title or my description of what my show is about, the final sentence is always observe responsibly. Now to this day, more people are learning about it. They want a real, thorough investigation, an honorable one to be exact. Doesn't matter race, color, creed, political spectrum, etc. Period of time, people are coming out, talking about it, questioning whether, if you believe it was demolition, nuclear thermite, or microwave, claim that. Stop bickering with one another. Have a good discussion, but don't make it into a big, chaotic debate. All you folks have in common the official story is a monumental lie. So, I'm going to be talking a few things about addressing some of this horrific event. And it will be originally first from Paul Craig Roberts on his website, paulcraigroberts.org. It says here, 9/11, 14 years later. And as it reads, millions of refugees from Washington's war are currently overrunning Europe. Washington's 14-year and ongoing slaughter of Muslims and destruction of their countries are war crimes for which the U.S. government's official 9/11 conspiracy theory was the catalyst. Factual evidence and science do not support Washington's conspiracy theory. The 9/11 Commission did not conduct an investigation. It was not permitted to investigate. The Commission sat and listened to the government story and wrote it down. Afterwards, the chairman and co-chairman of the Commission said the Commission was set up to fail for a factual explanation of 9/11. Watch this film. And it talks about, and there's a couple link there pertains to a trailer of the Firefighters for 9/11 Truth. Very interesting. And once you watch it, and of course, there's a video here. Here's a presentation by Pilots for 9/11 Truth. It's like 41 minutes long, a little bit over 42 minutes long. And here's a website. Here's an extensive examination of many aspects of 9/11. It's by lugocommune.net. It's that module section, index, and all that. There's a link for that. So they're in light blue. You can look at these for yourselves. Very fascinating. I think I'm happy about because people are questioning it more than ever. Even the ones that were laughing at those individuals are now aligning with that particular group. And right down here, Phil Restino of the Central Florida Chapter for Veterans for Peace wants to know why the national anti-war organizations buy into the official 9/11 story when the official story is the basis for the wars that anti-war organizations oppose. Some are beginning to wonder if effectual peace groups are really Homeland Security or CIA fronts. Something to look at. The account below of the government's 9/11 conspiracy theory reads like a parody, but in fact is an accurate summary of the 9/11 official 9/11 conspiracy theory. It was posted as a comment in the online Telegraph on September 12, 2009 in response to Charlie Sheen's request to President Obama to conduct a real investigation into what happened on September 11, 2001. And you know what? He's still pursuing it. The wars. And people tell me that, well, he's just the middle of the road, but George W. Bush was the worst president ever. You know what? With all due respect, stop sympathizing for our president of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama. He is just like George W. Bush. He's just another New World Order agent, bellboy, or other words, a bend-over Bob. Because he's a Democrat, we should just give him a little sympathy, exception, have him be exceptional, unmeritable, null and void. That's what I gotta say about that. If people don't like that, don't like my view on President Obama, back it up with merit, if you dare. I will proceed. The official 9/11, the official version of 9/11 goes something like this. Directed by a beardy guy from a cave in Afghanistan, 19 hard-drinking, coke-snorting, devout Muslims enjoy lap dances before the mission to meet Allah. Using more than a craft knives, they overpower cabin crew, passengers, and pilots, and pilots on 4 planes. Sorry there, I did a little tongue-tied. And hangover or not, they managed to give the world's most sophisticated air defense system the slip. Unfazed by leaving their how-to-fly passenger jet guide in the car at the airport, they mastered the controls in no time and scored direct hits on 2 towers, causing 3 to collapse completely. The laws of physics fail, and the world watches in awe as asymmetrical damage and scattered low-temperature fires cause steel frame buildings to collapse symmetrically through their own mass at a free-fall speed for the first time in history. Despite that dastardly cunning and superb plan, they gave their identity away by using explosive-proof passports, which survive the destruction of steel and concrete and fall to the ground, where they are quickly discovered lying on top of the mass debris. So, we could say this would be good for perfect. It'd be a perfect script for this. The perfect script for the Walt Disney's next motion picture. Could we say that? A little sarcastic and a little tongue-tied as usual. That's okay. And it says, and we go further. Meanwhile, in Washington, Hani Hanjour, having previously flunked Cessna Flying School, gets carried away with all the success of the day and suddenly finds incredible abilities behind controls of a jet airliner. Instead of flying straight down into the large roof area of the Pentagon, he decides to show off a little. Executing an incredible 270-degree downward spiral, he levels off to hit the low facade of the Pentagon without running the nicely mowed lawn at just speed too fast to capture on video. In the skies above Pennsylvania, desperate talk to loved ones before their death, some passengers use sheer willpower to connect mobile calls that would not be impossible until several years later. And the following heroic attempt to retake control of Flight 93. The airliner crashes into a Pennsylvania field, leaving no trace of engines, fuelage, or occupants except for the standard issue Muslim terrorist bandana. During these events, President Bush continues to read My Pet Goat to a class of primary school children in New York. World Trade Center leaseholder Larry Silverstein blesses his own foresight in ensuring the building against terrorist attack only 6 weeks previously. In Washington, the neoconservatives are overjoyed by the arrival of the new Pearl Harbor, the necessary catalyst for launching their pre-planned wars. Wow! They attacked us because of our freedoms. That's what Rudolph the Red-Nosed Pinocchio Reindeer Giuliani said. Actually, he read that from a cue card, believe it or not. Wouldn't be surprised. But that's just the example of the bread and circuses debacle. And what really gets my goat when I heard the propaganda matrix on this, I was more infuriated by that. Why? Because you have to contemplate critically, see through the white lies, the deception, or other words, the propaganda matrix. Even till this day, I tell everyone, 9/11 was sponsored by your foes from the New World Order. Whether it's the Israelis, the Saudis, the Americans, the tyrannical elements of all those nations, not Muslims as a whole. Collectively blaming the Muslims for 9/11 is just saying that collectively condemn the Jews for the economic downfall of Germany, or blaming the Armenians for the crumbling empire of Ottoman Turkey. I can go on and on and on. Just a few examples. And we can easily say too, the Apache. Blame it on the Apaches. They're animals. Scapegoat them collectively, which it means the enemies, my friends. Scapegoating is one treacherous epidemic that's been exercised for millenniums. Don't believe that particular hype. What happened on this day? A lot of beautiful people passed, including people on all creeds or national backgrounds, etc. Regardless. This is why I say it was a New World Order agenda, because it's a 24/7 excuse for everything. Look at the airports for an example. They want you to go through the body scanners. They want to pat you down. Not saying everyone at TSA are bad folks, but it's a pretty bad concept. Train us like a bunch of little convicts. What am I convicted of? Doing business with the airline industry? Something to think about. There's lots of other ways it can be done. It's just an example. They want to do the national ID card. They want us to go around getting your license under the Real ID Act, where some of the states didn't have the courage to nullify it. And they say, if you don't have the national ID card, you can't go through the airports or anything like that. You know what? They're trying to tell everyone we are smarter than you and how business should be done. It is a form, my friend, of neo-mercantilism in the airline industry. Oh yeah, feds know best, screw the rest. That's what they're saying. Nothing more than a deceptive pipe dream. I know I'm ranting a little bit, so bear with me. This is how I look at this day. And I constantly talking to folks about it, not afraid what they think. There's many people, I could say, chat with strangers, chat with attractive people. They like what I said, and they're starting to learn. And that's what's great. People are waking up, are questioning. That's how you do it. This is what's driving the one world order crazy. And their excuse is bombard all these nations. They're going to try to say, oh, Iran was involved in 9/11. We'll attack Persia or Persians. You know what I say? If those people believe we should go attack Iran or any other country because of 9/11, you say this. You go to the front line and see how tough you are. Not including the Dingleberries legislation Congress in Washington, D.C. Call them all out. Doesn't matter what party they are in. I'm tired of their garbage, believe it or not. And that's why I tell folks, they need us more we need them. So I'm going to continue on here on something with 9/11. This one here came from True Activist by John Vibes. Ask your neighbors the Building 7 challenge this year on 9/11. And as it reads, this week's Activist Talk radio host Bob Tuskin went to the University of Florida campus armed with a small television and a microphone. After getting his gear up, Tuskin started something that he called the Building 7 challenge. The idea was to show people footage of Building 7 falling at free fall speed on September 11, 2001, and just ask them what they saw on the video without first telling them when the footage was taken. A vast majority of the people who he interviewed, even police officers that were called the scene, stated it was fairly obvious that the building was demolished. After they gave their answers, Tuscan informed them that the footage was in fact the World Trade Center Building 7. A building that collapsed was not hit by a plane. Despite the fact that Building 7 appeared to be demolished and was not on fire as other buildings were, there are many people who are not even aware that it fell on that day, and many others who think that it is simply a conspiracy theory. There is so much evidence that has come to light since the collapse of the World Trade Centers that is now quite clear there was a massive cover-up involved in this situation. There are also many numbers of the establishment employees of the CIA, FBI, NSA, and other organizations who caught on to the cover-up while it was happening. These whistleblowers successfully exposed the cover-up beyond a reasonable doubt, but their stories were largely ignored by the mainstream media. The testimony of people like Sable Edmonds, Richard Andrew Grove, William Bergman, Colleen Rowley, Michael Springham, Robert Wright, and Daria Singh, and Barry Jennings totally blows the official government account out of the water. Among the piles of scientific and anecdotal evidence, there are now over 1,300 architects and engineers who have signed a petition demanding of Congress a truly independent investigation. This independent investigation is necessary because the 9/11 Commission was a total puppet committee who just pushed the story that the Pentagon ordered them to. The wars that are happening around the world, a police state that is expanding in the Western world, and a general lack of privacy and peace worldwide is justified by the official story of the World Trade Center attacks on 9/11. Almost every specific point of the general story contradicts all evidence and eyewitness accounts. The 9/11 Commission, which was developed to investigate the issue, was a setup. How do we know this? Most people who sat on the 9/11 Commission have since come forward admitting they were not allowed to look into the most of the evidence, and that were tightly controlled by the Pentagon. One commissioner, John Farmer, has even come out in a book called The Ground Truth, in which he reveals the details on how 9/11 Commission report was basically written by the government. This means that a kangaroo court was responsible for investigating the crime of the century. Isn't this good enough reason to support a legitimate investigation? Tuscan's Building 7 challenge can be viewed below, but you can put your friends, family, and neighbors to the challenge as well. And he did this at University of Florida, and he did a good job on it, and many people had to really have him think really thoroughly. So it's something people have to really look at, and check it out. You see it for yourself. It's really, regardless of what you think of Ruskins, he is getting people to look at everything a lot more further. So that's one of the other things you could do. You could share that with folks. And I am going to add Rethink 9/11, which is Rethink 9/11 video by 9/11truth.org. Wait, hold on here. I'm going to do rethink911.org. That would be good to do. And there's a video for that, which is actually sponsored by Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. So, you can look at that. I have the video right here. It's 5 minutes, 47 seconds long. So, definitely check that out. And And definitely examine that. There's donations and so forth, so I'm going to add that to the footnotes on this subject. And let's look at here this day in history. Actually, no, I'm going to something interesting came up. I'm going to add this as well. A reference related to 9/11. It's from The Guardian. It came out today. And it says here, Florida man charged over alleged 9/11 memorial bomb plot. As it reads, U.S. officials have arrested a man who allegedly tried to help plan an attack on a 9/11 memorial event. The U.S. Attorney's Office said Joshua Brian Goldberg, 20, of Orange Park, Florida, has been charged with distributing information relating to explosives, destructive devices, and weapons of mass destruction. A criminal complaint said Goldberg began communicating online with an FBI informer in July and gave the person information how to build a bomb using a pressure cooker, nails, and rat poison. Pretty fishy, huh? The complaint said Goldberg instructed the informer to place a bomb at an event in Kansas City, Missouri, commemorating the 14th anniversary of the 2001 attacks. Something to really look at, my friends. Really boggles the mind. I don't know how accurate the story is, but one thing I know about FBI informers, they're just fishing people left and right. This is another reason why I tell folks the war on terror is a conflagration or conflict with ourselves. Whatever you folks do, don't get involved in doing things like this whatsoever. I'm just curious how accurate this article or story is. Mr. Goldberg's only 20 years old. In Orange Park. I think it's somewhere up in Volusia County. I'm not so sure. I'm going to have to look at it myself. Something to think about. I don't know how his IQ is. If he's a mind control advocate, we don't know. But the whole thing is, we have to probably examine this a little more further. I find it's pretty suspicious in good faith. And so, always, never try to send stuff like that or communicate in those ways, because you never know who may be on the other side. Alright, we'll do a little nostalgic here. It actually came out the 29th, 2009 on this day. And originally came from Jack Blood, but it looks like they haven't, they took this linked off. And it's interesting. This day in history on September 11th. And this is a lot of interesting stuff happened on this day. And we will start. In year 1226, the Roman Catholic practice of public adoration of the Blessed Sacrament outside of Mass spreads from monasteries to parishes. In 1609, Henry Hudson discovers Manhattan Island and the natives living there. In 1773, a public advertiser publishes a satirical essay titled Rules by Which a Great Empire May be Reduced to a Small One, which is written by Benjamin Franklin. In 1776, British-American Peace Conference on Staten Island fails to stop nascent American Revolution. 1777, American Revolution, Battle of Brandywine. British celebrate a major victory in Chester County, Pennsylvania. 1786, the beginning of the Annapolis Convention. 1789, Alexander Hamilton is appointed as the first United States Secretary of Treasury. You should read Hamilton's curse on that one, my friends. You'd be surprised. And I will proceed. The Hope, in 1792, the Hope Diamond is stolen along with other crown jewels, which which 6 men break into the house used to store jewels. 1813, British troops arrive in Mount Vernon, prepare to march to Washington, D.C. to invade it. Wow. And we can continue on. 1857, the Mountain Meadows Massacre, Mormon settlers and Palouse Massacre of 120 pioneers at Mountain Meadows, Utah. And it goes here. 1906, Mahatma Gandhi coins the term Satyagraha to characterize the nonviolence movement in South Africa. 1922, British Mandate of Palestine begins. 1940, World War II, Buckingham Palace is damaged during German air raid. 1941, the ground is broken for the construction of the Pentagon. World War II, the U.S. Navy is ordered to attack German U-boats. Charles Lindbergh Des Moines speech accused the British, Jews, and Roosevelt administration of pressing for war with Germany. Interesting. It's interesting. Look at that. When you think about it, the ground was broken for the construction of the Pentagon on September 11th. Of course, in 1941. Something to think about, my friends, huh? Okay, 1960, Young Americans for Freedom meeting at home of William F. Buckley Jr. promulgate the Sharon Statement. 1961, the foundation of the World Wildlife Fund. 1970, 8 hostages of the Dawson's field hijackings are released. Remaining hostages, mostly Jews and Israeli citizens, are held until 1925. 1973, a CIA-backed coup in Chile, headed by General Augusto Pinochet, topples the democratically elected President Salvador Allende. Pinochet remains in power for almost 17 years. In 1982, international forces that were guaranteeing safety for Palestinian refugees following Israel's 1982 invasion of Lebanon leave Beirut. 5 days later, several thousand refugees are massacred in the Sabra and Shalatia refugee camps. 1987, Dan Rather walks off the set of the CBS Evening News over disapproval of the handling of a major event being interrupted and postponed by sports programs, leaving 6 minutes of dead air. 1990, under George H.W. Bush, delivers a national televised speech which he threatens to use the force to remove Iraqi soldiers from Kuwait, which Iraq has recently invaded. 1998, Independent Counsel Kenneth Starr sends a report to the U.S. Congress accusing President Clinton of 11 possible impeachment offenses. Of course, 2001, September 11th attacks takes place in the United States. Airplane hijacking result in the collapse of the World Trade Center in New York City, destruction of western portion of the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, and a passenger airliner crash in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 2005, the State of Israel completes its unilateral disengagement from the Gaza Strip. 2007, Russia tests the largest conventional weapon ever, the father of all bombs. And it's not on here, but we can add as well, on 2012, the consulate of Benghazi, Libya, which many folks, including the consul himself, got murdered by members of Al-Qaeda. Something to think about. Yes, so a lot of strange things happen on that day when you look at it. And there's a lot more stuff that occurred on that day. But it's just a good prime example. What is, you could say, question, which everyone can look at that immediately. And of course, the Benghazi thing, there's records on that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to really talk about it, but I know a lot of conservatives and Fox News are going to be talking about that all day long as well. But there is, I recommend you go to JushaWatch. org and check out the files on Benghazi. You'd be surprised on the emails when they may claim, oh no, we didn't know about it, but that was like 6 months, like reports were happening and information occurred before that specific day in 2012. So something to really look at, my friends. Alright, it's got to bring this up. Alright, next came out from Activist Post, and by Joe Wright to be exact. It is entitled 10 Ways to Spot a False Flag Mass Shooting. And as it reads here: real or fake, the mass shooting events are pregnant with consequences. After the Sandy Hook shooting, Connecticut passed strict gun laws, and they're trying to pass invasive homeschooling laws because alleged shooter Adam Lanza was reportedly homeschooled. Really? After the Chattanooga hoax, several governors signed executive orders allowing National Guards to be armed at all times. The Charleston shooting hoax resulted in the banning of the Confederate flag. That's right. Can we say distraction? Nothing to think about, because when all that was going on, they passed one of the versions of the TPA, which is a technocratic bill, one of the technocratic bills of global trades. And now we'll continue on here. All of them have been used to demonize the free flow of information of the internet. The message is that the shooters were radicalized on the internet and the type of content must be censored. These lone wolf shooting events always seem to follow a perfect problem reaction solution sequence, or the Indian dialect, and maybe I hope I got that right. Problem equals lone shoots up innocent people for no reason. On psych meds, radicalized on the internet, probably racist. Reaction equals outrage that a crazy person had access to a gun. Solution equals more gun control laws and ammo restrictions. It is such an easy and effective formula. How could gun grabbers not use false flags? For those who don't know, false flags are covert operations designed to deceive in such a way that the operations appear as though they are being carried out by the entities, groups, or nations no other than those who actually planned and execute them. The most recent televised shootings was cleared at a staged event. At this point, anyone who wants to confirm that it was a hoax can see my previous post. There's 3 links on there, here, and here. You can look at the links yourselves. Many other shooting events share the exact same script that exposed them as probable false flags events. In fact, it is starting to become obvious for those who know what to look for. Here are 10 ways to spot a false flag mass shooting. 1. The media covers the event. The national media doesn't care about people getting killed with guns unless they can frame it within their gun control agenda. When all the established media is amplified in particular shooting, you can be certain that the nefarious things are afoot. 2. No survivors. How are drugged-out losers performing with Rambo-like prowess and accuracy? Adam Lanza allegedly killed those kids and teachers with no first-hand survivors, no injuries. Do you know how rare it is in combat? The human body is very resilient, and even trained soldiers miss their target in the heat of battle. This is a major flag seen in almost every shooting event. 3. Family appears on TV within 24 hours, showing a little emotion. When the victim's family is immediately reviewed by CNN with dry eyes saying, like, I've got nothing but love in my heart for the shooter. Less than 24 hours after the brutal murder, you can be sure it's a false flag event. 4. family, or witnesses in the event have acting backgrounds. Most of the characters in these hoaxes are failed actors. They seem to have finally gotten their big break to act like a grieving victim. Search for YouTube crisis actors shooting. Even that 1% of that content is true, your whole reality will be turned upside down. 5. Participants in the hoax immediately blame the gun, demand more gun control. No victim's family ever said gun laws aren't to blame. It was just the wrong place at the wrong time in these hoaxes. 6. Shooters have social media accounts. Why do all these shooters seem to only have a month or two of social media activity? That's highly unusual for a real person these days. 7. Shooter commits suicide. It is much more convenient when the shooter is killed off in the story. That way they don't have to worry that their patsy will spill secrets. It is not always the case because access of the alleged Aurora shooter James Holmes and the alleged Boston bomber is easily restricted. 8. Shooter leaves manifesto. If the media releases the shooter's manifesto or social media statements that reinforces the government's agenda to expand the war on terror domestically, it's probably a stage hoax. 9. A victim's families don't sue for negligence, but receives millions of unsolicited federal payouts. This was one of the biggest tells for me that Sandy Hook was a fraud. The federal government just doesn't hand out money, and parents with a major gripe about schools usually files lawsuits. The opposite is true for these shady events. 10. My solution wouldn't have prevented the events. Finally, a powerful way to tell these events are false flags is that the proposed solution for more gun control wouldn't have prevented any of these attacks in the first place. It's all a ruse. Even if they were genuine tragic shootings, they can't be prevented by banning certain types of guns, the number of bullets, types of magazines, or even who is legally allowed to buy them. Besides, violent crime statistics have been plummeting in the last few decades. We're living in the most peaceful times in human history, yet gun grabbers would have us believe the opposite. Don't you see? They need to make you feel frightened. They want us to give up our right to self-defense and buy into their protection racket. They want us to beg them to spy on us, restrict our freedom of speech, and ban guns for our own safety. And I suspect they'll continue these ridiculous hoaxes until they get what they're after. Joe Wright. Always enjoyed checking out, reading stuff from Activist Post. And like I said, you have to always pay attention. Look through the fine lines. Look through the fine print. This is what I see, my friends. And you have to always observe things thoroughly. Think strategically. Read The Art of War. And of course, always harp about looking at Ed Benez's propaganda. Alright? You have to actually check it out for yourselves. Because one thing for sure, my friends, they want us to be submissive to them. You know what I say? Piss off. Plain and simple. So, like I said, you have to look at things a lot more thoroughly. Alright. So much thing on the Activist Post. You should check it out yourselves. ActivistPost.com. So, I'm just gonna hit some other stuff from Activist Post. And this one here came from same link. It's by Tyler M. And this one's entitled, Background Checks for Prospective Gun Buyers Reach an All-Time High. Really? Okay, that's some interesting news there. Boom and boom. Alright, let's check out what does it have to say here. As it reads here, the FBI conducted more background checks for prospective gun owners in August 2015 than any previous month on record, proving once again that nothing helps boost gun sales like a push for gun control. Retailers called in roughly 1.8 million background checks last month, the highest monthly figure since the FBI started tracking background checks in 1998. Monthly gun sales have grown by more than a million over the past 15 years, the Washington Times reported. Because the government doesn't publish statistics on gun sales, background checks are often used as indicators for the sales of firearms. When the number of background checks goes up, it means business is booming for the firearms industry. The recent increase in the background checks came after shootings in South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. This summer, prompt renewed calls for gun control. Whenever there is a call for gun control, sales increase. Larry Keene, a general counsel for the National Shooting Sports Foundation. The concern that anti-gun politicians are seeking to infringe and restrict the right to keep and bear arms is very real and well-founded. Democrats and moderate Republicans have introduced a number of gun control measures over the past. Even the NRA, through its support behind a gun control bill encouraging states to share information of the mentally ill with the federal government. Senate Democrat Tim Kaine introduced yet another confiscatory proposal was introduced last week. The Responsible Transfer of Firearms Act would make anyone transfer a gun to a prohibited individual criminally liable. You know what? Let's check that link out. So what do you have to say? It's from thefederalist.com. Came out on the 8th to be exact. A couple of days ago. And let's see what they have to say about it. Yeah, so it's getting a little slow. But sometimes I just get a big kick out of this. One thing they're doing, see, what's funny about these folks, these organizations and politicians, they're the best firearms promoter ever. When it comes to controversies and talking about doing tougher gun laws and how these stupid, pathetic Church of Hollywood butt lugs are saying enough, enough, enough. And you know what? You got start ridiculing these clowns and go, thanks for the inspiration. How many of you remember the Two Life Crew case when that one former, I think one attorney, I believe maybe the Sparta, I don't know, Jack Thompson, when him and Nick Navarro said Two Life Crew was obscene. What happened? What occurred? Well, the Two Life Crew sold 2 million records around the country. See, when it comes up controversy, it's a great promo package. So let's just see what the Federalists have to say about this. Tim Kaine's gun control bill is a backdoor ban on all private gun sales. A new gun control bill from Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia appears to be nothing more than a backdoor ban on all private firearm sales in the U.S. Can we say penile microphone? Kaine's proposed law entitled Responsible Transfer of Firearms Act places a criminal federal liability on anyone who transfers firearms to an individual prohibited from possessing one by federal law, according to a fact sheet provided by Kaine's office. Under current law, federal firearms licensees, FFLs, by virtue of being required to conduct background checks, are assumed to know whether a potential buyer are prohibited from possessing firearms based on the results of a required background check. Kaine's law would extend that assumption and the criminal liability attached to it to private individuals as sales. Sounds simple and controversial, right? Not really. The reason FFLs currently face criminal liability for lawful transfers is that they are mandated by law to conduct or confirm background checks on all firearm sales, even sales at gun shows. Hold on here. Come on. Oh, yeah. Let's go here. Shoot. One moment. There you go. All internet sales between private residents must be processed through the FF and FFL in the buyer's home state. That process must include a federal background check. Sales between two private non-FFL individuals who reside the same rate are the only major category of firearm transfers that are exempt from federal background checks. The reason for that exemption is obvious, that there's no federal interstate commerce nexus. In order to conduct those federal background checks and to prevent themselves from being held criminally liable for selling guns to criminals, FFLs are granted access to the FBI's NICS database. Before completing a sales, FFL will contact the FBI, given the information provided by the buyer on an ATF form 4473. And the FBI will tell the FFL whether the buyer is cleared to purchase a gun. Can we say privilege? While current federal gun law imposes a criminal liability on those institutions with authority to conduct criminal background checks, Kane's bill does no such thing. Instead, Kane's proposal criminalizes a private individual's failures to conduct a federal background check while refusing to give that individual the right to conduct the federal background check in the first place. Kane's office confirmed that his bill does not give private individuals the authority or ability to conduct a federal background check in order to avoid federal criminal liability imposed by his proposal. Federal law currently restricts NICS access to FFLs or state law enforcement agencies. It does not give an FFL's access to the NICS database. A.M. Dudley, Kane's communications director, told the Federalists via email. The legislative text of the proposed bill releases the criminal liability only if the seller has taken reasonable steps to determine that the recipient is not legally barred from possessing firearms. However, the most reasonable step available, conducting a background check via the same system used by FFLs, is not available to any private individuals. Kane's gun control proposal is akin to an anti-speeding law for which some reason prohibits drivers from using speedometers to gauge their speeds. Aside from virtually eliminating the private sale market in the U.S., Kane's gun control bill will also likely drive up profits for FFLs. Exactly. If private individuals remain banned from conducting federal criminal background checks, they will be forced to process their transfers through FFLs, most which charge hefty fees to process external sales. The latest gun control effort from the junior senator from Virginia comes on the heels of the gun control movement's failures in 2013 to enact so-called universal background checks. Rather than working to convince states to require background checks on all purchases, Kane is doubling down the gun control movement repeated failure to enact federal universal background checks. Given the 2013 gun control effort failed to garner the 60 votes necessary to end debate, it seemed highly unlikely that far more drastic proposals, a de facto ban on private sale, intrastate gun sales will come anywhere close to passage. Yes, so the whole thing is Kane's bill is nothing more than a wet dream. I can dream about it. This bill will make us all real safe. Take a dump. That's all I have to say. It's by Sean Davis, by the way. So who wrote this? And this is just an example, my friends. It's nothing more than a sham, another monumental lie. Please, don't give me your propaganda matrix there, Mr. Kane. because you're not going to win. It's nothing more than a pipe dream. And of course, people do their little rants, which is okay. I'm not going to say a word because Bill of Rights means government keep out. If Canes don't like it, the hell with them. Walmart's hiring, chump. Okay, we got another one here. The activist post. Actually, we'll just do a little swap here. Interesting. This one came from the New American, which is good information. It says here, European Commission President asked EU to accept 160,000 migrants. Now let's read this by Warren Mass. Speaking to the members of the European Parliament in Strasbourg, France on September 9th, Jean-Claude Juncker, the President of the European Commission, the executive branch of the European Union, asked EU members to accept 160,000 migrants. Juncker's statements came in the face of what is regarded by many as one of Europe's most difficult humanitarian challenges in many years. I hate when he do that to me. One moment, please. Laying the groundwork for his request, Juncker noted that since the beginning of this year, nearly 500,000 refugees have made their way to Europe. The vast majority of them, he stated, are fleeing from war, terrorism, or political oppression in Syria, Libya, or Eritrea. He said that the EU states most affected by the migration are Greece, with more than 213,000 refugees, Hungary with more than 145,000, and Italy with more than 115,000. As we noted in the report on September 7th, most of the refugees in Hungary are ultimately bound for Germany. Juncker maintained as long as there is a war in Syria and terror in Libya, the refugee crisis will not simply go away, which is probably an accurate statement. Then he charged EU members, so it's high time to manage the refugee crisis. There is no alternative to this. Emphasis in original. I don't know what Juncker has been token up or popping. You don't make any sense, buddy. Or chump. Excuse me, I'll call him chump. Chump Juncker. Continue on here. In continue, however, Juncker's words make plain how much national sovereignty member states have surrendered to the EU, though he laminated that there is no greater uniformity among member states since the early 2000s. The Commission has persistently tabled legislation after legislation to build a common European asylum system. Juncker put forth a solution to the refugee crisis. I call on member states to adopt the Commission proposals on the emergency relocation of altogether 160,000 refugees at the Extraordinary Council of Interior Ministers on 14th of September. We now need immediate action. We cannot leave Italy, Greece, and Hungary to fare alone. One proposal offered by Juncker, while appearing to be made in the interest of efficient processing of asylum seekers, would serve to further undermine what little national sovereignty remains among EU members, he stated. I also believe that beyond the immediate action needed to address current emergencies, it is time we prepare a more fundamental change in the way we deal with asylum applications, notably the Dublin system that requires that asylum applications be dealt with by the country of entry. In other words, under the present system, EU member states have the right and responsibility to process requests for asylum on their own. Sorry about that. Junkner favors more centralized approach. However, we need more Europe in our asylum policy. We need more union in our refugee policy. A true European refugee and asylum policy requires solidarity to be permanently anchored in our policy approach and our rules. This is why today the Commission is also proposing a permanent relocation mechanism, which will allow us to deal with crisis situations more swiftly in the future. By solidarity, Junkner obviously means a uniform, centrally controlled system throughout the EU for processing all asylum requests, thereby denying member states the right to accept or reject migrants who want to cross their borders. Yet Junkner also asserted a refugee and asylum policy also requires a stronger joint efforts to secure our external borders. He added, fortunately, we have given up border controls between the members of states of the Schengen area to guarantee free movement of people, a unique symbol of European integration. Junkner's description of what has already transpired and what he proposed in order to increase the EU's Commission external border security is reminiscent of the Reject Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America, SPP. The SPP was founded in Waco, Texas on March 23, 2005 by Canadian Prime Minister Paul Martin, Mexican President Vicente Fox, and U.S. President George W. Bush. In 2006, CNN anchor Lou Dobbs argued that the TPP was part of a plan to merge of the United States, Canada, and Mexico into the North American Union, similar to the European Union. Multiple articles published by the New American and by its affiliates organization John Birch Society made exactly the same point. Faced with strong criticism, those seeking to establish the SPP eventually allowed the plan to die. However, the idea itself never died. On February 4, 2011, Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper and President Obama announced a new Security and Prosperity Initiative with a plan to pursue a perimeter approach to security in ways that support economic competitiveness, job creation, and prosperity. I remember just going into the bathroom, taking a dump, then hear that to read that plan. Please look beyond the boundaries of the EU, closer to the source of the conflict that has caused so many refugees to flee, Junkner said. Today I call a European diplomatic offensive to address the crisis in Syria and in Libya. We need a stronger Europe when it comes to foreign policy. And I am very glad that Federica Mogherini, our determined High Representative, has prepared the ground for such initiative with her diplomatic success in the Iran nuclear talks, and that she stands ready to work closely together with our member states towards peace and stability in Syria and Libya. Unfortunately, Junkner is far off mark in asserting that a stronger European foreign policy could lead to peace and stability in Syria and Libya. As Alex Newman noted this in his article proposed by the New American September 8th, politicians and establishment figures in the United States and European Union demanding that the West accept millions of Middle Eastern refugees are the same globalists that create the tragic situation in the first place by destroying the countries their victims are fleeing from. These countries include Libya, Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, focusing on the area that is now an epicenter of the turmoil, responsible for most of the mass exodus from the region. The Syria-Iraq border. The two factors most responsible for the upheaval were the U.S. invasion of Iraq that removed Saddam Hussein and created a power vacuum in that nation, and the U.S. support for the rebel forces attempting to overthrow Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. The conflict in Syria began in 2011 as various groups coalesced in an uprising against al-Assad's government. The now well-known ISIS, also known as the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or ISIL, entered the Syrian civil war on the side of the rebels, and by July 2014 was in control of a third of Syria's territory and most of its oil and gas production. As the civil war in Syria raged, the United States decided that Assad was an undesirable strongman in the mode of Saddam Hussein who must be removed. And so the U.S. government chose to assist the moderate jihadist rebels fighting against Assad. However, many of these U.S.-supported moderate rebels defected to Al-Qaeda's Syrian branch known as Jabhat al-Nusra, which also allied with ISIS. When these rebels left to join up with ISIS, they reportedly took away their heavy U.S.-supplied weapons with them. Junkner has called for stronger European foreign policy to address the crisis in Syria and in Libya. Another term for such a foreign policy is interventionist, which is precisely the foreign policy that the United States, and its European allies pursue in the Middle East for at least 2 decades. We recently quoted a statement from former Representative Ron Paul, Republican from Texas, who was well known for his advocacy of non-interventionist U.S. foreign policy. Paul wrote, "The reason so many are fleeing places like Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, and Iraq is that U.S. and European interventionist foreign policy has left these countries destabilized with no hope of economic recovery. The mass migration from the Middle East and beyond is a direct result of the neocon foreign policy of regime change, invasion, and pushing democracy at the barrel of a gun." Paul continued by noting, "There was no ISIS in either Iraq or Syria before 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq. Paul's advice to stop meddling in the affairs of other countries was direct primarily to Americans, but is also good advice for Junkner and other Europeans who follow the same path pursued by the United States in destabilizing foreign governments in the interest of promoting democracy. Such destabilization creates power vacuums that are filled by terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The result is not only death and devastation in the regions controlled by terrorists, but also mass migration as refugees flee the terrorists, creating crises such as now confronting Europe." That is a fact, my friends. This is what you listening or observing of all these migrant refugees around the Middle East regions and Afghanistan and so forth, fleeing to these European nations, is organized chaos. Galvanize those areas, they'll flee to those nations, and shove multiculturalism down those citizens of those particular nations' throats. This is just part of the Club of Rome agenda, which is affiliate to the One World Order. There's been reports about like in Germany, there's even claimed in Germany that they can't honor their culture. You have to force them. And I have to say this is totally unacceptable. That's why I'm against this whole foreign intervention. It's downright disgusting. And I call out all those neocons about, we got to bomb these nations. That's why I'm not tell them, you get your big butts out there. Let's see how tough you really are. As I say, throw these politicians in there that want to go to war. Let's see how far they go. I don't care how old they are. And there's a lot of multiple sources on this article as well. And like I said, it's very, New American has a lot of it's a memorable website, and they have a lot, and they back up their stories and so forth. It's always don't mind narrating these articles now and then, because you have to look at everything, like I said, a broader perspective. But we have to stop being an empire, and I don't give a damn what these banks think, the World Bank, the IMF, and so forth, because they want to mush us in like a bunch of little huskies and bellboys, like, yes, master, what can we do for you? Okay, boss, house and field peasants. They like that game. They do nothing while the little person got to do their job. And I say, piss on them, plain and simple. Stop these damn wars. Stop these illegal conflicts. Let the people in those countries decide their fate. Plain and simple. If you don't like it, too bad, because I don't give a damn what you think. Alright. I'm going to add a video from the Activist Post, which was Storm Clouds Gathering did a real good article on the cover-up, European Refugees Crisis cover-up. So you can look at that. You can check that out yourselves, and you can make your own judgments. Okay. So I'll leave that. I'm going to add that to the link. Next one here came from the New American as well. I know I've been haven't really focused on a whole lot of areas, just those particular links. Came out the 9th to be exact. It's entitled, September 9th, it's entitled, Anti-Police Sentiment Growing. Cops initially denied service at restaurant. It's by C. Mitchell Shaw. And I think I have read something like this a while back. Yep, Pembroke Pines. But you know what? Let's see what Mitchell Shaw has to say. There is a growing anti-police sentiment in the United States as a result of slanted and incendiary mainstream media coverage in the wake of the events of Ferguson and Baltimore, as demonstrated by police officers being killed and attacked increasing numbers over the past several months. It is also recently demonstrated when police officers in a small South Florida city of Pembroke Pines, which was initially denied service by fast food employee simply because she was in uniform driving her patrol car. It happened on September 2nd when Sergeant Jennifer Martin, who has been with the Pembroke Pines Police Department for most of her 12-year law enforcement career, went through a drive-through window at a local Arby's. According to the report, she later filed with the department. The employee, 19-year-old Kenneth Davenport, seemed distant and rude.
Light on or off?
Turn it off. It'll be fine. You too, man. Yeah, that's one of my folks that checked in. So it says here, a 19-year-old Kenneth Davenport seemed distant and rude, but she chalked it up to distraction. When she pulled forward to pay and receive her order, however, she realized there was more of it than that. As Davenport took her credit card for the payment, he walked away. His manager, 22-year-old Angel Maribal, came to the window to take his place and told Sergeant Martin, Davenport doesn't want to serve you because you're a police officer. He laughed about it when she told him she was extremely uncomfortable and did not think she wanted to eat anything from there. Maribel told the officer that it was all right and assured that Davenport was allowed to refuse to serve her. He handed her the order and laughed again about Davenport refusing to serve her. Concerning about her safety, Sergeant Martin decided not to eat the food, knowing if either the young man or someone else at the restaurant had done anything to it. She parked and went inside for a refund. Maribel refunded her money and provided his contact information. Davenport refused to speak with her or provide his information. Pembroke Pines Police Chief Dan Godestino issued a statement which said, I am offended and appalled that an individual within our community will treat a police officer in such manner. It is unacceptable. I will be contacting the RB CEO to demand an apology. When he contacted Arby's CEO Paul Brown. The executive order did offer an apology, and Arby's issued a statement saying, "We take this isolated matter very seriously as we respect and support police officers in our local communities. As soon as the issue was brought to our attention, our CEO spoke with police chief who expressed his gratitude for a quick action to indicate that the case is closed. We will be following up with our team members to be sure that our policy of inclusion is understood and adhered to." Chief Giustino said he considered the matter closed. Jeff Marano from the Police Benevolent Association was not so forgiving. He insisted that this simple apology was not enough, saying this is excusable behavior for an employee in an establishment to be treating a uniformed police officer or anybody in the public like that. He also says the employees should both be fired. John Rivera, the president of the Miami-Dade Police Union, agreed and said that until both clerk and his manager were fired, he was calling for a boycott of Arby's. In his statement, he said, "It is beyond comprehension and deeply troubling that a business would deny service to a local enforcement for just being a law enforcement officer. This is yet another example of hostile treatment of our brave men and women simply because they wear a badge. It is unacceptable and warrants much more than an apology." The next day, Davenport said the whole thing was a joke. According to NBCMiami.com, he said, "My manager just made a joke and she couldn't take it the right way. She has no sense of humor. It was busy, and then she was probably one of the last cars we had. She wasn't for the joke, I guess. We're too busy, so my manager's like, oh, I get to serve you instead of him. Like he's getting overboard for that." When asked if he dislikes police, Davenport replied, "Not at all. Never had a problem, but this kind of changes me now. I'm starting to think like, could it be possible a publicity stunt, or what is it, racism? Something? I didn't do anything to this lady. Why is it so worldwide, like you guys say? To me, I'm just gonna keep living my life, and whatever happens, happens. There's nothing I can do at this point." What has not been explained is why Marable, seeing that Sergeant Martin was bothered by the treatment she received, never told her he was only joking. Also, why did Davenport refuse to speak with her or provide his contact information? As pressure increased, Arby's CEO decided to take the whole thing more seriously than he had initially appeared to. The company issued another statement that Marable had been fired and Davenport had been indefinitely suspended. The CEO made a trip to the Pembroke Pines, and the local Arby's restaurant offered free combo meals to all police officers in the area. Many officers have claimed those free meals, or various reports indicated that several of them passed the meals along to the homeless people in the area. Davenport's grandfather, Thomas McCutcheon, who raised Davenport, claims his grandson is the victim here. His life is just starting, and a black mark against him is not going to help. Perhaps his grandson can learn a valuable lesson from this. Actions have consequences. The case is similar in some way to the story of the police officer who was attacked while surrounded by an angry crowd in Madison, Wisconsin. Both instances happened on the same evening, though hundreds of miles apart. Both police departments told the New American that they worked hard to maintain good relationship with the local community, and that the outpouring of support from their citizens in the wake of these events was a reminder that it is working. Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, there's time to have battles with certain police officers and so forth, but it's always been on principle, not personal. I'm not going after them on a personal level, but on what's right is right. So I've always do it that way. However, when you do business with people, okay, even a place like that, you have to do it all in good faith. You don't joke around with strangers in those areas. They don't know you, you don't know them. See, that was a mistake by Mr. Davenport and Mr. Marable, excuse me. Well, that's what happens when you choose poorly. It can backfire. You can get fired. You can be disciplined. That's how it goes. So each and every one of us have got to take responsibility for our actions. And like I said, there is corruption, criminal elements in every entity, movement, or institution. That's how it is. But you can't just crucify everyone collectively. That's where I draw the line. And this was very disturbing. So, some people thought, oh, it was great. Yeah, screw the police. You know what? I know they're not obligated to protect you as individuals, but I know they protect the service public the best they can, and I do agree they're being trained more aggressively, and they're not being peace officers, but rather revenue collectors, and I do condemn that as well. But you treat everyone as individuals, even the ones in those institutions. That's how I am. So, think before you do. That's the bottom line. Alright. And I'm going to add another video here about local police versus national police. It was done by the John Birch Society. And I gotta say, it's a real good thing, how we should do it more on a local level than go on a federal level. So, and on the control and power and so forth. And people say you can't do anything on the local level. Don't give me that crap. You can. And so definitely check it out. I'm going to add that link to it with this article. And finally, excuse me here. This is interesting from Fukushima Watch. And this one's entitled, The United States threatened its own mini Fukushima disaster. This happened around St. Louis, as it reads here. Leaders in St. Louis suburb are pleading with the Obama administration to clean up radioactive landfill that has potential to be engulfed in flames. The Environmental Protection Agency has been trying to do something about the Westlake landfill in Bridgeton, Missouri. For the past 25 years, barium sulfate waste from the Manhattan Project was dumped in the landfill in 1973. Private company Malin Grode, a big pharma corporation that used to produce material for atomic bombs, is now headquartered in Ireland, presumably to avoid paying U.S. taxes. Allegedly illegally dumped the toxic waste into the landfill. Unsurprisingly, data provided by the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services reveals that cancer rates are higher among residents who live near the radioactive landfill. Okay. This reminds me of the Love Canal incident. The EPA has been trying to cook up a plan for how to contain the radioactive waste. Fire from the adjacent landfill threatens to spread more of the waste into the environment. No one is sure what will happen if the two landfills collide. Could it spark nuclear emergency that could blanket the masses? Residents and officials have written many letters to the Obama administration to step up and take care of the problem. Give that with the federal government. We believe that the Corps of Engineers is the best suited entity to handle the Westlake landfill. Ed Smith, Energy Program Director with the Missouri Coalition for the Environment, told sources. We believe it would be within the power of the president to issue an executive order to clean up the bureaucratic alternative mess at the Westlake landfill. Put one government agency in charge and utilize the EPA Department, Missouri Department of Natural Resources, what have you, as experts on these issues while having one quarterback instead of two, he added. A spokesman for the White House said the Obama administration has heard pleas of the Missourians, but has not stated if any actions will be taken. The situation has anonymous undertones reminiscent of the Fukushima disaster when the Japanese government failed to make adequate preparations that would prevent a nuclear disaster from ensuing. Unlike the Fukushima disaster, however, the radioactive threat at the Westlake landfill can still be contained. Well. That's what happens when you got a bunch of douchebags that don't give a damn. Contaminate the community. Let the people sort it out. I think those sons of bitches should be thrown in jail, as far as I'm concerned. Extradite them from Ireland. Take them in. Very disturbing. If I'm correct, that's not far from the New Madrid fault line. What would happen if that occurs? Possibly Mississippi River and those areas can be contaminated as well. So instead of dragging your feet, get your asses in gear. And I've been a little bit vulgar, so forgive me on that. This is how I see things, just very insulting. But it has to get cleaned up one way or the other. Lord willing, how many children were affected from this wasteland or landfill? Something to really think about. Well, hope for the best for those folks in Westlake. Is it Westlake? Yeah. No, or Bridgeton. Excuse me, Bridgeton. Yeah, Bridgeton. So that is all for now, my friends. Thanks for listening to this episode. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media network. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, love letters, hate letters, or send me some cool stuff, something that's interesting, always use it with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio for your comments, or you can send it to YouTube as well. Or you can email me at lokiluck3@gmail.com. Once again, thanks for your time. Plus, always remember that demonic resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.